Hello everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on vectoring in Illustrator. This time I'm going to be talking about how to vector a pony's mane and tail. As you can see, since last time I have completely finished up AJ, save for her cutie mark, and Rarity has nearly been completed as well. Um, Even though I've already completed the mane and tail for Rarity, I will be revectoring these just to show you how it's done. I only did these as a test to make sure I knew how to do it. To start off with, the mane and tails for ponies are one of the places where layers come into handy the most. Let's see, let me turn my source image back on. Now, I'm going to be starting with Rarity's tail. And as you can see right here, I have it already divided into 3 sub-layers for my complete version. I'm just going to recreate the process for you here. Okay, I'll label this tail 2, and then I'm going to create 3 sub-layers. Not quite like that, within this one layer. Now I'm dividing it up into 3 sub-layers because I'm going to have a layer for this portion, which is the upper tail, this portion, which is the mid, and this, which is the lower. Okay. Now I'm going to start with the upper tail. The first thing to do when figuring out when vectoring a tail is to figure out what its components are. In this case, you have the stroke, you have 2 fills, and then you have the little line details here, which help give the hair a little bit of depth. Now I've decided that I'm going to vector out these strokes, and this color is not going to work. I need it to stand out. Let's go with some teal. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to start with a line here, and I'm going to keep the strokes relatively thin so I can line them up a little bit easier. And a point here. And like in the previous tutorials, I'm going to go with as few nodes as possible. Helps keep the line smooth and looking good. Right. And I'm just going to end it, oops, not like that. Right, let's see, I'm going to have to drag, oops, I've accidentally clicked off this once. I'm going to have to end it just beyond the line and then drag the anchor point back onto it. Okay, I'll zoom in and move the anchor point back down to the line so that I don't have a stroke error when all this is done. Line the path back up. And there we go, that's the first stroke. Now I'm just going to switch the color of it. Let's see. Over to this, and I'm going to bump up the stroke width to 3, because that seems to fit for this. This isn't directly on it, and there we go, that's close enough. Just to give you a contrast, I'm going to change the color one more time. As you can see, follows it pretty closely. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's as many nodes as I need to create this. Potentially 4 could be used, but 5 just to keep the curve correct and without any flat spots in it. So I'm going to change this back to her normal purple color. And then I've got one more main stroke to do, which is this one. And that is just going to be a very quick thing. Okay. And there we have it. That is the essentials to her upper tail. Okay. Now, I've just got a couple little details to throw in here, which I'm going to do very quickly. I'm going to turn the width down to this. I'm going to turn on a green color this time. In fact, let's start down here. You should generally be able to get these done in 2 points. Some of the more complicated ones, like you'll see up here, take sometimes 3 to 4. Okay. And I'll change the color of these all at once I finish them, because they're all going roughly the same place in the sublayer. So it'll be easy to just click on one and then grab the other couple. Okay, this can't really tell where these end, so I'm going to scroll back out a little bit. If you're having trouble figuring out where something goes because it blends in with the color, zooming out usually helps, because you're not looking as directly at the colors. It's called being too close to the problem. Sometimes you have to take a step back and readjust your view. Okay. And that one is done. Now just one to go. This one should end about here. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm just going to take and select all of these at once and change it to the stroke color. And there we go. Now then, I've got 2 fills to go before I can call this part done and move on to the next 2. So I'm going to turn off my stroke color, and I'm going to turn on this for my fill color, just so I have a contrasting color or something that stands out from it. Oops, I'm going to have to delete that one. The problem with Illustrator is that if you don't get that first anchor point right and you want to move it a little bit, it doesn't like to let you start the path there. Okay, and I can overlap this a little bit. Let's turn that color off until I get the entire path finished. Because these are because the gradient and this blue or purple down here are both going to be paths and layered beneath my strokes, I can be a little bit messy here. Okay, and then close the path off and turn on my fill color. I'm just going to drag this all the way to the bottom so you can see what it's going to look like. See, I have a little bit of a fill area here, but I'm going to be fixing it with this. First, let's turn on the gradient. I've already got it prepared right here. Which, oops, I didn't have this selected when I did so. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to turn off the tail real quick. As you can see, I need to adjust the color a little bit. Turn on my gradient tool with the G key and select it. Now I can do something with it. Let's rotate it slightly. And I don't need it to be that dark that soon. Just because in the screenshot I can't see the end of these strokes doesn't mean that's the case in the vector. Okay, and that one's done. Now I've got one more fill to do, and I'm going to switch back to that bright blue color. And all I have to do is trace out the basic shape of the stroke, just like doing another fill. Let me turn the color off so I can get this last little bit. And oops. Let me lock a couple of these strokes so I don't keep getting all their path pop-ups. Oops. Okay, I cannot tell what's going on with this stroke. But regardless, I just needed to go right there. Oops. That is going to cause a fill error. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to alt-click with the pen tool, create some sharp nodes, and drag it back up under the stroke. And I'm going to drag this down here to just above my gradient because I have that fill layer before. And then I'm going to turn on the actual color. And it looks like I've got another fill layer down here. So let's click on this. And reel it back in just a little bit. Okay, this is going to require an extra node so I can get that. Now then, let's turn off the source. And there we have it. As messy as it looks when you're doing it, it looks much better when you're finished. And I'm just going to take a quick second to look for any fill errors that I might have. And I have one indeed, right here with the strokes. So just drag the point back a little bit. And I'll readjust the arcs on these once I'm done with everything else. Okay. Now then, the upper tail is done. Let me turn my source back on, and I'm going to do the lower tail now. Switch back to this color and choose a contrasting one. And I'm going to set my stroke width back up to this. Now, this is going to be the mid tail. Now, this one is just a little bit easier than the last one because I only need to make one stroke and then I can replicate it. Let's see. Okay, it's not wanting to close, so let me just lock that whole layer down. There we go. Alright. And that's how simple that was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the stroke color. And I'm going to take and copy it and then paste in place with Shift, Control, or Command V. Unfortunately, this creates a duplicate of the sub layer, so I'm just going to delete that. Now then, my lowest one is going to be my fill color, which is the same color as the stroke. And I'm going to turn off the stroke. Let me make sure I got the right one clicked. Yeah, I'm going to have the layer selected, turn off the stroke, switch to the fill color, and turn that on. And this one, which is going to be the stroke itself, I'm just going to label that and leave it alone. I'm going to turn off my fill for the moment, and turn off the stroke for my next path. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to trace out the left, or this far right side of this shape, and then I'm going to trace within the stroke itself. It looks like I accidentally turned off the stroke color on something I didn't want to yet. Oh well, easy enough to fix. Okay. Let's reset my stroke width. Give me 1 second here while I fix my own mistakes. Right, and now that I've got that fixed, I have this path. Switch over to the fill color and turn it on. I'm just going to drag this down below the stroke but above the fill. And so now I have the light purple fill complete. Simple as that. Let me just check my time real quick. I'm going to finish up the tail, and unfortunately that's going to be all I have time for tonight, so I can keep these things in bite-sized portions for you guys. I don't want you getting bored while I'm working on this. Right. I don't believe I explained this, but I chose Rarity's mane and tail to do for the tutorial because it looks far more complicated than it truly is. It just takes a little bit of extra work, whereas someone like Applejack's is more or less just a closed shape. With a single fill and a couple of these little detail lines. back up here, I'm going to have just a couple of different strokes. So let's switch to a different color for the stroke. And when I originally did this, I figured out that I could do one stroke along here and then one stroke here. And there's a corner. This is going to be a bit tricky. Let me delete this one. Okay, restart the path. And I'm going to put one here. Right. And that's all I need to do for that. So I'm just going to turn it up to... Ooh, that's a little bit too wide. Let me drop it down to 2. Ah, much better fit. Okay, so this is the main portion of the stroke, and then this one is just going to be the bridging stroke. I really wish I had a better name for that, but that's what it does. Let's try this. I don't have... Not that far. There we go. Neither end of the stroke is poking out, except for right. Oops. No, come here. Thank you. Just the anchor point, thank you. There we go. Alright, now that that's completely hidden, I'm going to go ahead and change the color on these two to what they should be. And I'm going to reset my stroke width to 1, and then I'm going to do the detail. Because of the way layers and objects are automatically created in the layers panel, I like to do the farthest away object first. That way I have a rough outline. The fills I can just drag and drop wherever I want to, because once I got the path set, it's not a big deal to do so. I'm going to lock these so that I don't accidentally move them. Actually, let me unlock this one. And I'm going to turn on, let's see, fill for that. That's actually not how I had it. Okay, because I don't want to spend too much time experimenting. Let me turn the original tail back on, and then I'm going to look at how I had the lower tail set up. Thought as much. Okay, turn the old one off. Alright, so I'm going to switch these two over. I'm just going to throw a fill into here by tracing out the path. Not the most efficient method, but it works. And just drag it all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to turn it off so I can see what I'm doing for the next part. And let's go with this color. Oops. Switch those and turn off. If you're wondering how I do the colors changes so quickly and switch between stroke and fills, all the shortcuts are right down here and right here. All you have to do is hover over them for a second and they'll pop up. Okay, now I've got that extra handle, just create a sharp point and make sure it doesn't go outside the stroke. Then drag it to the bottom. Still got a small stroke error, which I'll fix in a bit. And now this last bit, which is just a square. This looks a little bit odd, but let's see how there, that's much better. These anchor points are just a little bit too close together. Oops. Oh. Can't click, and hold down for this one. That looks a little bit better, and I just got to fix this one stroke error here. So I'm going to command click and drag, and there it is. That is how you vector a pony's mane if it is half as complicated as rarities. For someone like AJ, like I was saying, it's just a shape like this, stroke, and a fill. All you gotta do is trace out the shape with the stroke color and toss in the fill color, and you're done. I hope this has been an informative tutorial. If you have any questions or problems, just leave a comment, or you can reach me via DeviantArt. I will be posting one more video with these two particular vectors in it, and it's going to be how you do cutie marks. It's a very easy thing to do in Illustrator, but most people probably don't know how to do it because it's kind of a difficult feature to find. I will also be posting these two vectors on my DeviantArt page so you can play around with the files and see how I did everything, or so you can experiment with them. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.